This family decided to clean out their father's garage when they all came together for the summer. When they opened it up, they were surprised to find not just a few old things, but a whole 50-year collection of junk. Welcome to our channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button to get all our latest updates. Now, let's get to the story. Grant Carver sat on his porch, taking a long sip of his drink. He often found himself lost in memories of the past. It had been 30 years since he had been alone. He never remarried after his wife passed away when their daughter, Karen, was just 7 years old. Before he retired, Grant worked as an airline pilot. He was so focused on his job that he didn't realize how lonely he was. He was always flying to different places and meeting new people. But now, in his retirement, he missed having someone to come home to. He missed having someone to share mornings and evenings with. Most of all, he missed those deep, intimate talks that only people who are close can have. He had one secret he never even shared with his late wife. It all started during a week-long break at Pattaya Beach in Thailand during the Vietnam War. After being away from the war for a week, he met someone who changed him in a way he couldn't explain. He never told anyone about this person, and even after all these years, the secret still felt like a burning coal inside him, a fire that never went out. But he knew he could never let it go. The thought of it still stirred something inside him. Grant had flown many dangerous missions, rescuing injured American soldiers from the harsh Vietnamese jungle. People felt he had a special kind of luck. They believed that if they flew with him, they would come back safe. A small smile crossed Grant's lips as he remembered. Back then, he felt invincible. The soldiers knew that if they flew with him, they'd make it home. Even when their helicopter was under enemy fire, Grant felt unbeatable. Once, a bullet passed through his helmet but missed his head. During his deployment in 1969 to 1970, Grant and his crew saved about 2,000 American lives. That was something he was proud of. They were known as the Dust-Off Crew, and they lived by their motto, total dedication to their troops. He told these stories around the grill when he came back to the U.S. and started flying commercial planes. But the war never truly left him. The sights, sounds, and smells stayed with him, and he knew they always would. The secret was something he would carry with him until the end. He hoped that wasn't true. Grant looked at the clock and decided to get another drink. The kids should be arriving soon. He was looking forward to their visit, even though he would soon be missing them when they went back to Boston. In the back seat of the car, Mike and Andy were teasing their older sister, Letitia. She was heading off to college in the fall and was 4 years older than the twins. She ignored them, looking out the window at the farms and woods of rural Virginia. Up front, Carl and Karen were having a serious conversation, not paying much attention to the kids. "Honestly, love, if you think you can talk my father into moving to an old-age home, you're mistaken," Karen said firmly. "He's alone," Carl argued. "He even admits it. If we find him a good place, he'll have company." Karen shook her head. "I know my father. He likes seeing his army friends regularly. Yes, he's lonely, but he needs to deal with that himself. He'd be upset if we tried to interfere. Promise me you won't bring it up. It'll ruin the whole visit." Grant stood on the porch, watching as the rental car made its way up the long driveway. He couldn't help but smile. Despite his son-in-law's flaws, he loved his daughter. His granddaughter was the light of his life, and the twins were always a joy. All he wanted right now was to hold them close and give them his famous death grip hug. The greetings were long and heartfelt. He hugged Karen so tightly she thought he'd never let go. He shook Carl's hand firmly. Letitia stepped aside so the twins could have their turn with their grandfather. Then, he and Letitia shared a special look. "You remind me of your grandmother, Pumpkin," he said gently. "Grandpa, you always say that," she whispered, smiling. As she jumped into his arms, she added, "I wish I could have known her." Later that evening, after dinner, the kids started talking about their plan for the garage. They wanted to clean it out and organize everything, and they weren't taking no for an answer. Grant was about to object. He had no idea what they might find in there. It felt like it had been years since he'd even opened the door. His past was probably half-eaten by rats by now. Grant turned his attention to the kids, noticing how excited the twins were. For them, the garage was like a treasure chest of old stuff where their imaginations could run wild. Letitia, on the other hand, had a more thoughtful look in her eyes. She wanted to do something special for him. After a moment of silence, Grant nodded, not wanting to spoil their fun. When he offered, "I'll help if you need me," the kids said no thanks. This was their project, and they wanted to do it themselves. Later that night, just after midnight, Grant suddenly woke up, thinking about his secret. He worried that there might be something in the garage that could lead the kids to the one thing he had kept hidden for so long. He tried to remember what was in there, but his memory was foggy. Eventually, he gave up and went back to sleep. The next morning, when Grant came down for breakfast, the kids had already started working. The boys had moved some boxes out of the driveway, and the garage door was slightly open. Karen handed Grant a cup of coffee and called the kids inside. As he watched them, his earlier worry came back. He kept trying to remember if there was anything that might reveal his hidden secret, but once again, he couldn't recall anything. Letitia was the first to leave the breakfast table. She went outside to check on the garage situation. Being older and more organized, she was prepared to handle things methodically. She figured the twins would help out, get distracted by what they found, get bored, and then help out again. She didn't mind. She was enjoying the day and looking forward to doing something nice for Grandpa. By noon, the twins had made their first big find. They discovered a large radio, a helmet, a rusty knife, and 2 dirty satchels inside an old metal trunk. Behind all this was an old tin box. When they opened it, they found old photographs and faded markings. "Let me see," Letitia said softly, taking the box from Andy's hands. She was taller, so she managed to keep it away from him until he gave up trying to get it back. "Let's sit down and look at these together," she suggested. Most of the photos showed a much younger Grandpa with other soldiers near helicopters. The kids didn't know where or who the people were in the pictures. At lunchtime, the twins proudly showed off their find. They placed the radio, knife, and helmet on the table. Letitia carefully held the photos. "What are these, Grandpa?" Andy asked. Grant looked at Karen, asking if it was okay to talk about the war. She gave a nod, so he started telling the kids the most exciting stories they had ever heard. His tales were filled with heroes, villains, battles, and emotional moments. Grandpa had been part of it all, and the stories were more thrilling than anything they had ever seen on TV. The kids were amazed. But while they listened, Grant felt a chill. He was worried the kids might discover the memento he had hidden in the garage, something he had forgotten about himself. And they did. An hour after lunch, Letitia found the small tin box, which looked like the one from the old photos. In that moment, an idea started forming in Letitia's mind. It grew, moving from the back of her thoughts to the forefront, turning into a plan. The next morning, Letitia skipped breakfast, claiming she had a headache. In reality, she was upstairs, on the phone in her room, focusing hard on her laptop. Karen grew worried when Letitia missed lunch as well. When Karen knocked on her door, Letitia said she was fine and just needed some rest. The next day, Letitia stuck to her plan. After lunch, she walked into the living room with a look of triumph. "I'm expecting a guest tomorrow," she announced casually. With butterflies in her stomach, Letitia watched as a car made its way up the driveway around 10 a.m. She couldn't see the driver clearly through the tinted windows. Grant was beside her, allowing her to keep her secret until she was ready to reveal it. But when the car came to a stop and the driver got out, Grant's face went pale. What he was seeing was unbelievable. Grant was so stunned he couldn't move or speak. A beautiful woman, around his age, walked up the porch steps and approached him. She touched Letitia's face gently before turning to Grant. "Hello, Grant," she said, her voice a bit shaky as she extended her hands. "Hello, Eleanor," Grant responded, taking her hands in his. "How's that for a happy ending? Have you ever reconnected with someone you hadn't seen in a long time? Share your story in the comments, we'd love to hear it. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.